There's certain types of skills, just tools that are easy and accessible that help our children regulate. And they're also tools that we use for ourselves. So when they see us, like, okay, like I'm frazzled, I'm trying to get that parking spot, for example, and they see us, okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath. You take that deep breath and then suddenly your kids in the back seat are like, okay, it's okay. It's going to be okay.
Right.
It's okay. She sounds like she's going crazy, but she's okay. I'm safe. And they see you trying to regulate yourself. Everything's okay. My 2.5-year-old said to me the other day, I think first he spilled something like all over the floor and I was like, oh, and then he said, Mommy, you're safe. And he's 2.5.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow,
because
that's
awesome.
Something
that we talk about a lot. When he's very nervous about something, I'll reassure him, say, okay, we're going to work through this. We're going to figure out, you're going to come up with a solution for this. Right now, I want you to know you're safe. You don't have it figured out. You're worried, but you're safe. Now he's 2.5, but he knew enough that when I had the situation, when he saw me responding like that, he said it to me. I didn't prompt him to. Meaning we can teach our kids this through our engagement with them, through our interaction with them. And then they really can use the tools.
Welcome back to another episode of The Jews Next Door. We have an amazing opportunity this week to hear from Miriam Campbell, the founder of Skills for Connection, which provides parents and professionals with trainings and materials to support social emotional development, which is so fitting for this week's episode, where we dive into the practical elements of raising children with emotional health, raising emotionally healthy children. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time. Really such an absolute pleasure to talk with you today, and really a major thank you to you.
Thank you for having me here. It's like my passion. So it's so fun to be able to talk about what I love. So thank you.
Amazing. So let's dive right in. What would you say is necessary for a parent to be equipped with in order to help their children's emotional health?
So I would say the first thing is a desire to be a growing person yourself. If you want your kids to be growing and have emotional health, then the place to start is always with ourselves, because they are going to learn from us, just like they learned how to speak from us. They also learn about emotional health from us. So you're doing a really great thing by listening and checking in with this podcast, because it's showing that you want to be a growing person. So if you're here,
nice little shout out for the podcast. Thank you.
Well, it's true. Like if you are investing your time and there's 100 million things you could be listening to or watching, you chose to do this, you're on the right track.
Awesome. So meaning, are you saying more than just modeling? Meaning not just that you are personally taking care of it yourself, or it's modeling it, or are you saying a little bit of combination of both?
Whatever we're doing, our kids are seeing and picking up like so much more than what we talk about. It's what we're doing that they're going to actually be implementing and following. So you can tell them, oh, by the way, I'm working on, developing some of my own skills. Like that is direct instruction versus like letting them see you. Oh, my parents go to Sharon. Oh, my parents go to parenting classes. Oh, my parents go to, organization classes, whatever it is that you're doing to be a growing person, you're modeling development and modeling growth. And that is health. Health isn't that we have it all figured out. Health is that you are growing. Like that's what being alive is.
So what does that look like in terms of emotional health?
So emotionally what does it look? What is the expression
meaning
of it?
For a parent, meaning in terms of for a parent to be a way to, meaning what does it look like for a child to be seeing their parent as working on their emotional health in a way that, I should, I need to be emotionally healthy too. And like that they see that model, and therefore that's something that is going to be important to them, and that value is going to be given over to them.
Okay. So it's always like, as I said, like it's a parent first model, in that when we are experiencing our life and any of the challenges, the struggles, any of things we're anxious about, any things we're feeling anxious and nervous, worried or anticipating, those things are registering in our brain, in our child's brain, because they see us and they interact with us. So like when we are, trying to drive in traffic and we're very uptight, that's being registered in our child's mind as like, oh, this might be a, concerning situation. They see, the pot bubbling over, and we are like, and we run to the stove. It's like registers in child's brain, dangerous thing happening. When they see like us cooing at a baby. So whatever we're doing, they're going to be registering. So it's not really like when we talk about emotional health, it's not really like separate from anything else that it's involved and integrated in everything we're doing. This is really why I work with parents, because parents are the ones who are showing us how do we interact with our life. Emotions are part of our experience. They're part of the way we think. They're part of everything we're doing. So our parents who are showing us how to live are the people who are going to be showing us about emotional health.
Sure. It's such a great point. It's totally a great point. So getting into in a practical sense, what does emotional health within a child look like? And I guess let's try to look at it in terms of like the different ages, like starting a toddler, getting to like middle school age, then getting to high school, teen age, and then maybe even adult. Like what does that emotional health look like to be an emotionally healthy child or teen? What does that exactly look like?
So I would say, really across the board, it looks like the capacity to be adaptable, the capacity to be able to grow and sort of, roll with the punches. When I say roll with the punches, I mean like, baby is bouncing on the thing and the blanket got moved out to them. They can move their hand and readjust. The more emotionally stable they're feeling, the easier it is for them to adjust. The easier it is for them to adapt and problem solve and come up as they get older, or even, a young child in their environment. That is like a really good symptom for us to see if our kids are really able to adapt. So that could be having a conversation at home versus having a conversation at a bar mitzvah, at their cousin's bar mitzvah with new cousins that they haven't really spent time with, or being able to adapt where the plumbing is out. Now, how hard is that for them? How hard is it when they have a substitute teacher? That's going to give us indications of how is my child doing overall. The more adaptable they are, the more flexible they are, the more they're at a place where they have enough cushion in their emotional world that they're able to sort of pivot as needed. The more that
Got it.
the less cushion they have, anything that dips into it sort of like makes them hit rock bottom.
Sets them off and like, got it.
And like, parents will tell me like, oh, like my child's going from like 0 to 10, like in an instant, like what's going on? Obviously there's other components to take into account, but like that to me is an indication like, oh, they need to have like a general sense of self, or a general sense of emotional safety, or a general sense of understanding of their environment, which is something that we work on with parents, helping them develop those things with their kids. But that's like an indication to like, if you're wondering like, oh, how's my child doing emotionally? That's an indicator.
Got it. Okay. That's very helpful. It's a great, like clear, concise, like definition of it. So are there practical things that parents can do besides for obviously the modeling of being someone who's adaptable, be someone who has the ability to pivot, besides for just modeling that in their own life and how they deal with different frustrating situations or whatever it is? Are there practical things that a parent can do, either tools or techniques or scripts or, that they can give to their children to be able to really help their children to be able to, get past those situations or whatever it is?
There really is. And it's not like there's like, oh, a one size fits all. It really is when you understand the psyche of people, like the constructs that I teach are the same constructs I teach for preschool when I'm teaching, a school of professional development educators, or if I'm teaching high schoolers, or if I'm doing one-on-one coaching with parents, because they're core constructs about how we think, how we work cognitively. How do we process information? How do we understand our environment? How do we relate to our environment? How do I change things in my environment? But so there are specific constructs that you can learn about how to engage with your child. So like, let's say your child struggling with a specific skill, you can be empowered to know, okay, this is what I can do in this specific case.
Got it. So can you give us, let's say, take us through some of those, let's say.
So like, let's say like emotional regulation, for example. So that's like, again, it's always going to be parent first modeling. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that we are modeling regulatory behaviors. And there are specific tools you can use when you're trying to help your child regulate. So let's say thinking about mirror neurons, like let's say they're, or the brain model where the lower they are in their, like if you think about the hand model, Dan Siegel's hand model, where like down here is like survival reptilian, then you have your emotions, and as you go higher, you have higher brain functioning all the way to your logical reasoning, executive functioning type of skills. So the lower you are, the more reactive you are. in that place, there's less language. So when you're trying to help your child regulate in this place, you're not going to try and tap into your language constructs. You're going to tap into your constructs of safety. So that would look like breathing. So you would stand across your child, breathe in deeply. And from a neurological, biological survival thing, your child will very often imitate that. Teaching them how to hug themselves. So that way their body has a physical message of I'm safe. A 20-second hug, research shows helps send that message to the body, you are safe. There's certain types of skills, just tools that are easy and accessible that help our children regulate. And they're also tools that we use for ourselves. So when they see us, I'm frazzled, I'm trying to get that parking spot, for example, and they see us, okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath. You take that deep breath and then suddenly your kids in the back seat are like, okay, it's okay. It's going to be okay.
Right.
Okay. She sounds like she's going crazy, but she's okay. I'm safe. And they see you trying to regulate yourself. Everything's okay. My 2.5-year-old said to me the other day, I think first he spilled something like all over the floor and I was like, oh, and then he said, Mommy, you're safe. And he's 2.5.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow,
because
that's
something
awesome.
that we talk about a lot. When he's very nervous about something, I'll reassure him, say, okay, we're going to work through this. We're going to figure out, you're going to come up with a solution for this. Right now, I want you to know you're safe. You don't have it figured out. You're worried, but you're safe. Now he's 2.5, but he knew enough that when I had the situation, when he saw me responding like that, he said it to me. I didn't prompt him to. Meaning we can teach our kids this through our engagement with them, through our interaction with them. And then they really can use the tools.
Totally. I don't know if you're familiar with the newer Uncle Moishi's Baruch Hashem song, but I find it to be like a perfect script for a kid because I had it with my son where one time we forgot his bag at home, and when I dropped him off at school and I realized, I was like, oh shoot, I'm so sorry, I forgot your bag at home. And he's like, no matter what comes your way, Abba, everything's going to be okay. Baruch Hashem. And it was literally word for word what the song is. And it's like he had this script in his head of exactly what Uncle Moishi says. No matter what comes your way, it's going to be okay. Baruch Hashem. And I was like, wow. First of all, love you, Uncle Moishi. Thank you very much. That was awesome. And but exactly like you're saying, giving them when we listen to that song a lot. And actually now I try to listen to it with them on the way to school. Cause try to remind them no matter what comes your way, it's going to be okay. No matter what, to give them that ability to be able to pivot, to be able to be flexible. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And one of the things I just want to add to that, I did say both of them to him. Like I said, you're concerned about this and you're also safe, where we can experience two emotions. We are inherently safe and we're also worried. So usually I'll start with the worry because at that moment, that's what they can connect to more easily. That's what they're experiencing.
Right,
that's what their blood, those hormones of adrenaline, of, the cortisol, it's, that's what it is. It's fear, however they experience it. Some kids will sweat, some kids will facial turn red, some kids will start clenching. You'll notice your child's reactions when you pay attention to it and be curious about it and start there because they'll hear you more. When they first see oh, they understand me, they get where I'm coming from. Suddenly they're going to tune in and be like, okay, I have this emotional regulation thing. And one of the visuals I use is they're sort of throwing them a lifeline where it's the situation didn't change. Whatever, terrible thing that has happened in their life. And obviously sometimes it really is terrible, but sometimes it's, their ice cream fell, which is very terrible. But that calamity they're experiencing, you threw them a lifeline, not even that, I'm going to get you a new ice cream, but just I'm a lifeline of my parents with me. My parent sees me.
It's like a validation of I feel seen, I feel heard.
Exactly. And it also gives them an opportunity to label that emotion. So then later on, when we are talking about in some type of, storybook or, when in, Peribet's song, she's saying it's I'm worried. Oh, that was worry. It gives them that. It's very helpful, that anchor. Yeah.
So you're saying being able to give children the ability to both label their emotions first and foremost to feel validated, to feel heard. And then being able to give them the proper either terminology or the words to be able to kind of label their emotions. And then giving them some sort of technique that they see you doing it, like that deep breath or whatever that is. That's like a model you're saying.
Right. So like I spell it out and explain it more concretely with the I see, I think, I feel, I choose model. But that's the idea. One of the pieces of when you label it, I'm blanking on his name. He's involved very much in somatic work. He always says, name it to tame it. When you actually put a concrete container for this experience by putting a label on it,
Sure.
this is,
Right.
and
Right.
parents very often are like, I don't want to call it that. I don't want to say that they're fuming because I don't want to encourage it. And maybe if I give it attention, then it's going to encourage it. But research actually
Right.
shows that when you hold it with them and you allow them, not take care of it for them, but hold it with them, like sort of letting them see what it is, they actually are more, capable, and taming it. It helps them take care of that experience or even know what
Right.
that experience is, which is so powerful.
Right. Right. That's amazing. And you just mentioned that you term it a little differently. You have like a model that you said, what would, like, see it, name it.
I see, I think, I feel, I choose is,
Right.
it's
So what is that?
so I have like all these constructs that help us understand because like, it's not like the type of thing where it's okay, when in this situation, when your child's lollipop gets dirty, and that was after the balloon that they were holding, flew up, and after their sibling sat in their seat in the car that they wanted
Right.
to sit in. Like, it's not like a
Right.
specific,
Right.
we all have to be able to be adaptable in how we understand what's happening with our children. But there are specific tools of patterns that we know that we experience. So like I see is we see the information. What is the concrete information that's happening? And then we have a thought about it. So that's like CBT-ish type of thing. And then the feeling connected. And then what are you going to choose? That's like a separate concept of like, we have responsibility or we have empowered to have choice. We have the clear actually in this space to decide what I want to do with it. So, I saw that she colored all over my report. I'm thinking, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. I'm feeling completely devastated and furious. And I choose to slap my sister. Or
Right.
I choose, and sort of helping them see that I still have choice in that space, which is, it's a
Right.
very
Right.
advanced thing. But basically the idea is that when we have these constructs in our mind, that we help our kids work through whatever situation comes up, whatever the experience
Right.
is, they're able to work through.
And is that something that you explicitly like talk through your children with? Like you show them like the construct, like I hear this and then I feel this. And then you go through that with them because like in a real, like kind of like in like a class type of way, or it's more like natural. Like how does that exactly work for a parent to do?
So like when I work with a child or with a parent whose child is seeing a therapist or has more one-to-one tutoring, I very often recommend that their teacher or therapist or tutor learns this terminology and is able to use it because they can use the same construct when they're analyzing a book and the same construct
Sure.
having
Right.
a meltdown about their math homework being too hard or whatever it is. So as far as like if I actually use the visualization, I have some parents who keep it on their fridge. My kids are too young right now to be able to do the visualization, but I do work with parents who they have it on their fridge, and sometimes they'll point it out for their kids who, especially the kids who struggle with language, they use that visual support. And sometimes it's like fun. Like, I have a lot of parents who have like date time and they'll be like, oh, let's do I see, I think, I feel, I choose about the birthday party, or let's do I see, I think, I feel, I choose. And it becomes like a format,
Cool.
but it is like most of the time parents are just using that construct in their mind and actually saying out what they see.
Got
Like,
it.
I see your arms are folded, your brow is furrowed, you're looking down. I think something's bothering you. I feel concerned. I choose to ask you. They're not going to say that I see, I think, I feel, I choose. They'll say like, oh, your arms are crossed.
Right.
Is something bothering you? I'm feeling concerned for you. Is everything okay?
So it's kind of like teaching a child also how to like read the room a little bit.
Exactly. So that same construct is how we teach them body language. It's the same construct that we teach them emotional identification. It's eventually what we use when we're trying to understand perspective taking, when you have your own experience. So that's your construct. That's your self. Now what's happening in the other self? So it's that same, because that's how people, that's the process. That's what I'm saying. But when I talk about like getting into like the core of people's psyche, that's really what it is. It's like, how do we all live? Like, it doesn't really change so much when we're 80, B'ez Hashem, and when we are 3, it's the same process. We just hope that
Right.
we be better at choosing.
Hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Well, so that what we were just talking about was more within how to help children to be able to read others' body language or even their own, like what's going on. How can we parents help their children to be able to, let's say, emotionally regulate or self-regulate?
So that type of thing where like we help them identify their emotion, that's really the tool of it. So like you're going to use like that eye to eye thing to help them get to a place where they could even have language. You're going to rely on the physical, the mirror neurons for them to see you breathe and then mirror that breathing. You're going to, do the touch. If that, sometimes the lack of touch is what they need, or they need the touch to get to a place where they have enough blood flow in the language zones, which is over here. It's not all the way in the front, but it's like pretty high up in the brain.
Right.
Has to be a certain amount that they could hear you. So trying to talk to a child and reason with them and problem solve with them when they are just shrieking and kicking the floor is very frustrating for everyone involved because it doesn't work.
Right.
There isn't blood flow over there. The most I would say that you could do in that space is use your language to tell them what it is they're experiencing. You are so upset that she, took your thing without asking and broke it. You are so upset. You're so frustrated. You are so disappointed. And I see you're so disappointed. I see you're so disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And you say it again and again till they feel like, okay, like contained more in their experience.
Right.
Their experience is that big. So the more you say it and the more you're containing it, creating a space for it. Sometimes like I'll ask my kids, like, you're so disappointed. Like, can you show me how disappointed you are? Or is disappointed this much, this much, this much, this much, this much. They're like, to here to the sky, here to the airplanes. I'm disappointed here to the airplane.
Right.
And then usually like even that's like they are able to contain it better.
Just helps them break it down a little bit. Right.
Yeah, I'm not even fixing it for them. They can fix it for themselves usually. They usually are very good at problem solving. They're, unless that's a place where they struggle, which is another thing to talk about. But, that it's in a
interesting because
regular.
one of our listeners called in, a question asking, I have a child who just gets so stuck on their emotions and like they feel so much and they just don't know how to get past that point. So kind of sounds like in a way like doing this would help them. Is there anything else that you would recommend in that type of situation?
I would also help them reframe it for the parent's sake and for the child's sake. It's an incredible koach to have strong feelings. It's a truly incredible koach. I'm not just trying to blasé it. It's also challenging, just like every gift we have. But a person who has incredible depth of feeling also has, it's an incredible power because we know that feelings are so much at what motivates us and moves us. So you have a child that has big feelings. That means that you have a child that really has capacity to really do a ton in their life. And we have this incredible opportunity to be the ones that are sort of guiding them in how they feel about their feelings. Do they have shame and guilt? Oh my gosh, I'm so dramatic. Oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. Why can't I be more good? Why can't I be more, that internal feeling of that is normal. And I just want to say, not that it's easy for the parents always, but that reframe is very, very empowering. So then when our child is melting down, this is our opportunity. It's not like, oh, this meltdown is getting in my way of going to the chasana that we're running late for, which it might be. But it also, aside from that, is the time when your child is now learning about their emotions and learning about how they can interact when they're so frustrated, when their mother-in-law, in the future at some point, did this very upsetting thing. And you're now giving them the opportunity, the tools to figure out how to cope with emotion. Oh, let me figure out what's going on. What is it that we see?
Such a great way of like looking at it. Wow. I love it. I love it. It's amazing. Just to like look at it as like, this is an opportunity. It's amazing.
And it's hard because we're such functional people. And then not always sometimes dysfunctional, but we're so much about like dinner has to be served, and it does. And bath time has to happen, and laundry has to happen, and homework has to happen. And we have to catch the bus or get to the carpool before they honk for the 6th time. Or, and their skirt, their backpack has to be zipped or all the stuff's going to fall out, Pressure, function. And these things are so important. But when we put the emotion at an equal level of that and say like, okay, like when they're feeling good, they're actually going to also function better. Like a child who is like feeling, safe in their body is going to be able to focus more and be able to actually follow directions more, if you want to think about it from practical perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. It's very true. Pivoting a little bit, on our topic of pivoting, another aspect of an emotionally healthy child, is a lot of their social interactions and their ability to have healthy and positive social interactions. How can parents help their children develop social skills, just like the ability to be able to communicate best, both with their parents and also with friends, and the ability to feel comfortable in a new social setting, to just go over and introduce yourself, to go over and make new friends, starting a new school or starting in a new camp, or when or whether you're talking about young children or older children. How does that, how can parents help their children in those situations?
So first of all, parents are the ideal person to be the one who is doing this work with their kids. I did social skills work with kids as a speech therapist, as a social worker, one-on-one for years. And again, I saw that progress that's made when parents are involved is like, you can't even compare, because social skills isn't, my math teacher in middle school, I was not the best math student. He would always say, Miriam, math is an observational sport. It's something you actually have to do in order to learn it. So if that's true about math, it's not much more about social skills. So like if a child is trying to develop their social skills and they're sitting in, even a one-to-one session, even if they're doing social stories, and even if they're doing, where they're thinking about what it would look like, or they're acting it out with puppets, those things are really good. Like if, let's say they're doing those are helpful. But what really is helpful is when parents are the ones who are working with their kids. Like there's no shortcut to actually doing it. I wish there was for math, but there isn't, and there isn't for social skills either. Like it's the skills that they need are the ones that they're actually practicing when their sibling, wants to come into the room and they're getting dressed and the sibling's banging down the door, and they can understand, why is she driving me crazy? And be able to practice perspective taking and practice, when they're at that kiddush on Shabbos or whatever it is, all the different interactions that we have 100 bazillion times a day, all the interactions are our playing ground to practice for when we meet new friends and when we go to a new school.
Sure.
And again, like we can talk about it with our kids, like we could talk about it overtly, but and sometimes even after the fact, like, oh, I saw that, you met that cousin. What are things that, you could ask her about tomorrow when you see her in the morning, or beforehand, if they're nervous. Like, I'll have parents that'll say, like, every time my child meets somebody, they always say, like, hi, what's your name? Because they want to connect. They just don't know what to say after that. So or they'll try and like hug everybody, and they're like, everyone's like a little bit, why is she touching me? Well, stop touching me. But really the child's just saying, I want to connect. So then the parents have an opportunity to practice. Okay. Like, so first we could ask them what their name is. Then we maybe ask them where they're from, try and notice a topic, something that's interesting to them or something that's obvious about them. And part of that is when we're really doing that. See, I feel like Choose model, it helps us learn how to notice what's going on in other people's worlds, which is a prerequisite to know what to talk to them about. Like that's where the weather conversation comes, because everyone experiences the weather, but that means the weather's happening in someone else's world. But that's underlying if you're thinking about what's actually happening, like what. So the more you understand about, okay, how does conversation work? If let's say that's something that your child's struggling with, then you can learn, then you can know, okay, this is the type of topics I could discuss with my child beforehand to practice with them.
Got it. So it's they're always going to be getting the practice, but it's kind of helping them to either have some scripts that they know like what to do going into it, or giving them some practice, even like practice runs with you of like what you can talk about.
Yeah. And there's all like the more that they're hearing it all the time, like if you talk about perspective taking all the time, and let's say you're using the I think, I feel, I choose model for yourself, and then I think, I feel, I choose model for them. Like, oh, your baby sister, what does she look like? Oh, she looks like her eyes are shut and there's tears coming out of her eyes and she's screaming. And what do you think she's thinking? Oh, get off of me right now. And how's she feeling? Very defenseless. That's what's happening in your baby sister world. From your world, you're thinking, my baby's so cute. And you're thinking you love her. You just want to hug her and kiss her all day. And you're feeling so much love. But what's happening in her perspective, and sort of talking about that as like, a way of living, a way of talking about perspectives. From your perspective, you are so hungry, you're so excited for dinner, and you keep on saying, what's for dinner, what's for dinner, what's for dinner. From my perspective,
Right.
and again, you have to be careful about how you do that because we don't want our kids to be responsible for our feelings, but it's also an important thing to teach them. There's another perspective here.
Sure. Wow. That's very powerful. That's extremely powerful. Wow. What about, giving them the ability to, or helping them to give them the skills to be able to communicate their emotions? Because that's like a whole nother level, meaning not just social skills, but their emotions, which is something that they know there's something that they're feeling, but they don't know what's going on, or they know exactly what's going on, but they don't even know how to communicate it.
Yeah. So again, like using the constructs that we have as far as the I see, and then labeling the things that externally you could tell about the emotion. Or if, let's say, you held your child while they're screaming, you know that their body temperature is hot. You know that they're sweating a little bit. I see you're sweating. I see that you're getting hot. I see that there's tears raining down from your mouth. I see your mouth is open wide and you're wailing with all of your might. You look, and then like, I think you are fuming. I think you are aggravated.
Right.
I think you're so disappointed. I think you're so frustrated. Right. And you give them that emotional language within that construct. They start learning about that experience. They start being, oh, that's that experience. Oh, okay. Instead of being like, it's okay, honey, we could just fix this, or, move on, whatever it is that would be more practical, but not necessarily more educational.
Sure. Yeah. I remember one time one of my children was like, and I'm like, are you trying to tell me something? Are you trying to express that you are happy? Are you frustrated? Are you sad?
Sure.
And then they got it. But like, oh, I need to actually use my words to tell you what's going on right now. So
yeah. And sometimes they don't know which word to use. So offering them options, especially when there's not so much blood flow happening over there, could be very helpful. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we could say you seem tired, ? In your voice, where they can be like, I'm not tired. I am so mad that, you said I had to go to sleep now, or whatever it is.
Right.
Which is why I'm telling you to go to sleep, because you're so tired. But anyway, but that, giving them that label, what they are experiencing, because you want it to be honestly what they're experiencing, because that way they'll know. I remember I had, at one point during my education, a teacher that stormed out of the classroom. We were a bunch of girls, we were talking in class, and he stormed out. And the window was open. And one of my friends were like, oh, he's so mad. Like, he's mad, or something like that. And he heard. So he opened the door and blew open. He's like, I am not angry. Slammed the door, the whole wall shook. Now, first of all, it's a little bit scary for everybody, but aside from being scary, which sometimes our kids experience fear when we aren't regulated, but aside from being scary, when we tell our kids, I'm not angry with you, well, please, you're angry. Let's call a spade a spade. So we don't want to be angry because we don't feel like that's really the way we're supposed to be responding, but we are angry. And so it's okay for us to get labels even to our own emotions. I'm so frustrated right now. I need to take a deep breath. And they will know it's because they haven't listened to the last 10 times you said something, or they might not know that.
Right.
They might say, why, but to even just label whoa, I'm frustrated. And that'll also help us to make it maintain it.
Sure. Yeah. That's great. If a parent, obviously children have different natures, and let's say you have a child that by nature is more anxious. So what can a parent do in that type of situation? Obviously, this model that we've been discussing, obviously will be very helpful. But how can a parent help their child who is anxious by nature be less anxious?
That is such a good question. That's such a beautiful question, because everything that a parent wants is for their child to be happy and healthy and feel wonderful. And that's what we want for our kids. We do. We don't really ever want them to have any negative experience ever in our hearts of hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think about it, we're like, okay, probably it's good for them. And blah, blah, blah. But really, we just want it to be good for them. Ironically, the best thing we could do for them when they're experiencing anxiety is teach them how to be okay with the anxiety. Where you know, if you ask a therapist, like, how do you know if somebody's like recovered from anxiety, quote unquote? And the answer is that they learn to be okay with their anxiety, because anxiety is either it'll express itself in this way or it'll express itself in that way. It's something like integrally that's a human experience. Fear is a human emotion, and it's actually be even a sign of intelligence that they're thinking about the future. Or they're thinking about, you know, it's
Interesting.
built in, it's innate. It's something that it's not, it's a good, sometimes we need to be afraid. It's a good tool. Right. It's a good skill that we have. When we have,
so you're saying rather than trying to like fight it, you got to just embrace it a little bit.
Right. And it doesn't therefore mean like, okay, so I'm afraid that if I go outside, then, you know, I remember like when I was a kid, like there was like all the bombings in Israel. And like, I didn't want to go to any public Jewish event because I was scared that there would be a terrorist attack. Now, there were many events I missed, like the Purim parade and like a lot of things that I missed because I was too afraid to do it. So that's like when the fear is getting in the way of like normal functioning, because that is pretty normal. Like there wasn't, you know, I grew up in Atlanta. There weren't, Baruch Hashem, you know, terrorist attacks there. It was a fear-based thing that was based on whatever it was that I was hearing as a kid. And that was just how, you know, how it was. But what happens is when we learn to live with our fears and we're able to, instead of saying like, oh, don't be worried, honey, you don't have to be afraid. It's like, you ever see like a spouse, like sitting at the front, at the wheel, in the car. And the other one say, calm down, honey, calm down. Like, are you crazy? If there's anything that will calm down, it's you saying, calm down. Like, like a fire coming out of their smoke out of their ears. But when we have anxiety and we tell them like, don't have this anxiety. Now, suddenly this anxiety is also something to be nervous about. It's this bad thing that's happening. So not only is the situation you're supposed to have,
so you're saying it like builds it up even more. Right.
It's saying that, oh my gosh. Now, if we just accept it, it could sort of like happen and go. That doesn't therefore mean the thought changed. We might still need to have a reasonable conversation with them. You know, be like, okay, so where, first we would do like that. I see like, okay, so where are you experiencing it in your body? Where is the anxiety happening right now? Your stomach is tense. I remember I at one point had a student who every day she was very, she had, I was like an assistant in the class, and she was very, I was an assistant a bunch of places. So don't think it's you if you're listening to this, but there was one of the teachers, this child was very afraid of, and the child had like literally developed ulcers, you know, holes in their stomach because of anxiety.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it would be helpful for this child. I mean, aside from more conversation and more support that's needed, but to even just be like, okay, so where is it in your body? Oh, it's right here. Okay, let's hold it. Let's respect it. Let's take care of it. Let's listen to what it's saying. It's saying that you're very afraid. It's trying to protect you from something. You're afraid that this teacher is going to get you in trouble, and then what's going to happen? And then once you have that space, then you have the place for them to sort of explore and talk out what it is that they're afraid of. I'm afraid that the monster under my bed is going to come get me. That's what you're afraid of. Okay. Now, once you're in cognition, because they found it in their body, they processed it in their body, and now they're in their mind, they're in higher level functioning. Then you could say, what do you think would help you? And you're still giving it to them. This is all them, because you don't want them to have to rely on you to save them. Meaning, you can say, what will help you? Oh, mommy's going to fight away all the monsters, and that's them calling upon you. But it's not like, I got this fear, you know, I got this taken care of. They're sort of like coming up from what would be a solution for them. And some things are surprising what would be a solution, and, you know, and we can support them with other ideas. But I would say the first thing is like, don't be afraid of the anxiety. Label it. Oh, you're feeling nervous about this. Okay. We're allowed to be nervous about this. It's trying to protect you. And let's say thinking about IFS, like internal family systems, thinking about like, what is this doing for you? How is this helping you? This is trying to protect you from. So then, okay, so are there any other way that you think that maybe you can make sure that you don't get in trouble other than, you know, crying at home? Or is there, maybe, you know, maybe they need other support, and there's more to talk about there. But I would say this first step is making it be something that isn't scary.
Sounds good. That's very helpful. And I guess like somewhat connected to that is because sometimes when a child has a lot of anxiety, so sometimes they're less self-confident. So, I mean, connected, but somewhat different. Are there other things that, you know, a parent can do to help their child feel more confident when there's someone who is lacking in confidence?
Yeah, very good question. So, there's internal confidence and there's external confidence. And sometimes we need both. There's like a big push nowadays for it all to be internal. But I think like there's a lot of places in the Torah where it talks about like Hashem's reaction to what we're doing, which means there is an external motivator that is important. Like if Hashem like love reach nichoach when we have a carbon, like it's externally we're getting that affirmation. This was a good thing. Or, Hashem's anger burned, like he had an experience outside of this. Like there is also, there is an external place, and there's a big push nowadays, like, oh, it should all come from internal. A child should be internally motivated. So I would say there's two ways. One is to build up the child's internal motivation. Rebbetzin Heller Gottlieb talks about how there's like no shortcuts to developing self-esteem, confidence, self-esteem. The child actually has to succeed in order for them to feel like I can be successful. Like you tell them, oh, you're successful, you're successful, you're successful. They'll be like, my parent is delusional, and they might stop trusting you. You're saying. And then sometimes we'll see behaviors like, oh my gosh, you're the best big brother, because right that minute they share their thing and they know they just slapped their brother 2 minutes ago. Like then suddenly they're going to see a worse behavior because they're like, that's not true. So we don't exaggerate their thing. But let's say they see that they're actually experiencing success. So this means like either you're giving them opportunities for success, or they already have built-in opportunities for success. Oh, I see that you pulled your chair all the way up. Your food went all into your mouth. None of it's on your lap. None of it's on your shirt. I see that your bag is zipped the whole way. Like all your homework is ready to go in the morning. I see that you got out of bed without me needing to get you. Or I see you got out of bed right away when I got you. Or I see that you got out of bed second time. That was so much faster than yesterday. So they actually see their successes, and that is from externally. And we can only do it if we actually see them as good. You can't say words that you didn't think of. You have to have thought of it. It means like you have to have seen it. So that's the part from externally. It's a lot on the parent to notice where they're succeeding and point that out to your child. And don't exaggerate.
Totally.
Yeah, with really what happened.
Awesome. It's great. It's very good. Very, very helpful. I want to go back to a topic we spoke about this in the beginning, but going a little bit of a different route. We spoke about in the beginning about how one of the first points when it comes to raising emotionally healthy children is, the parents and how our emotional health is. So what about if a parent, let's say, doesn't, is struggling with their own emotional health? So then how can they then raise an emotionally healthy child? Meaning, is it impossible at that point? Because, you were saying it's like such a crucial component. So, but one of our listeners is, struggling right now with it and wants to know what can they do? What can someone do at that point? Or is there anything they could do?
Yeah. First of all, I'm so happy you have at least one honest listener that they're struggling, because we all are struggling in that none of us are already finished products. None of us show up as parents, finished products. I sort of think that that's partially why Hashem makes it that infants need us to feed them and burp them and put them to bed. Don't necessarily need us to for them to be able to confide in us, in our feelings. But we sort of have we grow as we become parents, and probably the time our kids need us the most emotionally is as they grow more and more, and we actually have this opportunity to grow. So it's healthy to be involved in our own growth and developing health. Everyone has a different starting point, and struggles in different levels and areas. But the process of struggling is actually the process we actually want our kids to be involved in. Our kids aren't going to be perfect, just like we aren't perfect, just like there hasn't been anybody, the people that Hashem said that never sinned, and that's only, notable by the fact that they also didn't sin because they probably could have sinned, meaning that none of us are finished. We all are in the struggle, which means that our kids are going to see us struggle. There's no one who knows our struggles more than maybe our spouse and our kids. They know the best. They know better than probably therapists. It's very true. They know when we're about to lose it. They know what things we're sensitive on, which things we're insecure about, which things we feel guilty on. Later on, they're going to use those things to help us develop more, to know even more about what things we should work on, where we need to develop more honesty and more process and more everything. Because
the biggest musser is our own children and our own dealings with our children. Totally.
Yeah. So I would say the best thing you could do for your child as far as modeling emotional health is be a growing person. Like, letting our kids see I am dedicated to improving myself. That there's nothing better than we can give them. Like,
Right.
So I actually have a WhatsApp group, and today we were talking about on the group different parenting models. And so, like, some people say, like, what do I do if my spouse has a different parenting model than I do? If they're more, like, I want to empathize, but they're saying, like, oh, come on, shape up, like, get your act together, get off,
Right.
stop crying. And we're like, what? No, you're supposed to empathize. Why are you doing that?
Right.
You're
Right.
mess them up. And so we were talking about how, like, kids also grow from, first of all, what they don't want. So they see, like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because I didn't like how that felt. So then they learn, yeah, I don't want to do
Right.
that to
Right.
parents, or I don't want to do that to my friends. I don't, we don't have to be perfect in order for our kids to grow. So they might not think that we're perfect. We're not. Shh. Don't tell them. They know. We don't have to hide that we're not perfect, but we do want
Right.
to be the best model. What could we be a model in? Let me be a model with showing them that I can acknowledge when I made a mistake. I can apologize when I made a mistake. I just did something that was painful to you, and I'm so sorry that I caused you pain. What was that like for you? Oh my gosh, I'm hearing even more about this pain. And that's actually going to help motivate us to even be better parents, because now we're in a relationship with our child. We see how it's impacting them. Dr. Tamara Perlman talks about this, like how in a relationship, you're able to make so much more progress because you see immediately the response and the reaction that it has in a child. So we don't have to be afraid. We just have to be honestly present in what's going on.
Right.
She actually one time gave this mushal of like a parent who is blind and is using a cane to, find their way around. Beautiful. They figured out a way to function. Now, while they're trying to find their way around, they keep on accidentally hitting their kid's leg because they're trying to find their way around and their kid's around.
Right.
Now, that parent is not trying to hurt their kid. They're not. Also, the kid has bruises, but they're not trying to. It's not malicious. We're not trying to be, anxious or depressed or struggle with, finding the right problem solver. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I highly recommend if anyone can listen to anything that she does, you should. I learned so much from her. But the child also has a bruise. So it's important for us to discuss our child's bruises with them. We say like, oh my gosh, I lost control and I felt overwhelmed and I was trying to, and I should have taken a deep breath. I'm so sorry. Like, how did you feel when I screamed at you? Was it scary for you? How were you feeling? Oh my gosh. Now, we can also model for them what that looks like, not to like be stuck in guilt. Like, I don't have to beat myself up. I'm not a bad person because I screamed at my child. It means that I made a mistake. I really made a mistake. I hurt my child. I screamed at them. They have a bruise. Didn't try. I wasn't trying. My intention wasn't let me hurt my child. Sometimes we're so aggravated. We feel like I want to bother I want them to learn already. Maybe if I yell at them, maybe if they're sad enough. But that's not really our intention. Our intention is for them to do whatever it is that we want them to do. Our intention isn't, we're trying to get around. We're using our cane, but we keep on bumping into our kid in the way, and they have bruises. So we have the capacity to model. What does Chuba look like? Okay. We admit, I screamed at you. I hit you. I pushed you a little bit too hard into that car. I, grabbed your arm a little too roughly over there. Vidoy, right? And Harata, I'm so sorry to have hurt you. And you can even hear them. Let them process their experience. Let them hear, what does that look like? You're doing the best thing you could do for them because they are going to make mistakes in their life and their relationships. And now they'll know how to correct it, how not to go into denial, not to go into blame or guilt or depression, or they'll know what to do. So if you're struggling with your own emotional health, now you have an opportunity to be the best parent because your child is a human being also. And Robert Greene from Phoenix, or Shimon Greene, he talks about how sometimes people be like, oh, the parent had bipolar and then the child had bipolar. It runs in their family. And he's like, please, like Hashem doesn't need genetics. that child needed a parent who had bipolar, so that parent was the best person to understand this child. It's not accidental. Hashem doesn't like have like cards like, oh, let me throw that one wild card. No, Hashem says this child needs this parent's empathy because they will understand it. Or maybe the parent needs this child to be like, oh my gosh, like my child didn't ask for this diagnosis or this challenge. I also didn't. And they might have compassion for their child and we teach them to have compassion for themselves. It's Hashem does it perfectly. You don't have to feel like, oh, if I have an issue.
And that's like the concept. Right. Like that's the concept of like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because like our children are going to be very similar to us. And therefore we can help them as they go through the same struggles that maybe we have and help them to like perfect themselves in those areas. Or not necessarily perfect, because like
perfect yourselves. No, but yeah, perfect. We're trying to be as Hashem-like as possible. That we're always trying to do that. And yet Hashem gave us these ways to actually make it meaningful. That accomplishment is meaningful because we have struggle, because we have challenges, and it reframes the whole thing.
Totally. And what would you say should a parent do when they realize that their issues that they're dealing with, like, let's say, as a child, they were so unheard, or as a child, they were so ignored, or they always felt so overwhelmed. So, and then that's impacting their parenting right now. So obviously not necessarily that it's something that their child is dealing with, but that their issues that they, are like so like deeply rooted in them are now impacting their parenting. So then what do you do?
Yeah, their starting point is at a different place than maybe their friends in this area. In this area, it's a place where they might have to work harder, or they might have to do more therapy or more role playing, or talk it out with a dear friend or a rub or somebody that can help them process. And they could do role playing and they can ask their spouse for support. And, being in that interplay with the honesty of we are all growing. We are all part of the journey. It's not bad when we struggle. This is the moment. This is the moment when we talk about learning how to have, self-control, like Yitzchak, to learning how to have Yitzchak Avinu, or like, this is the moment that I'm practicing that. This is the struggle right here. It's hard to feel love because my parent didn't feel love. It's hard to feel patience because my parent wasn't patient. It's hard for me to feel identify emotions because my parent didn't identify their emotions. Whatever it is, that is your Akeda. That's where you are going to be learning and exploring, and take the time to take care of yourself. Like there's a self and the other. And the more that we're okay with it, the more that we're like, oh, that as much as we are aware of our process in that and being involved in who we are as selves and then who we are as parents. And it's exciting because we are able to achieve things we never would have achieved without our child. We're able to find places inside of our, like I'm my own journey as a parent. I'm like, oh, I never thought I could give a lick of my ice cream. I like ice cream. I never thought I could be that, giving or caring. Like I never thought that I could like allow my whole dress that I just put on for this chasana to get ruined and like still think my kid is cute. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that I had that bandwidth and like probably I didn't when I started out. But like as we learn and develop our selves and our internal skills, it's beautiful and it's exciting, and we can go, bungee jumping in our world of beyond where we ever could have, or whatever it is. I don't know if you're wrong. Yeah.
Totally.
You never thought you could. And it's wonderful and it's happy and it's joyful. Yeah. And that's how it could be for our kids also when we see it like that.
It's amazing. Amazing. So many incredible points. As we end off, is there any final message that you would like to share on, the practical aspects of how to raise an emotionally healthy child?
The thing I'm thinking of whenever we want to do anything in life, not specific to parenting, is tefillah. And it really is the case. It really is the case. If we want to have help for, trying to not yell the next time, or trying to be able to notice something good about my child who's literally, poking at all of my sensitivities that I had as a kid, or all my things, tefillah is the place to start. First, start with tefillah. And you can always, from there's so many skills you can learn. There's so many tools that are available to for coaching or taking courses or learning things, that there's so much available to help support you. You don't have to do it alone, but for sure, you don't have to do it without Hashem. He didn't, none of it's a mistake. None of your child's challenges are a mistake. None of your challenges are a mistake. And it's all just connect it back to him, bring it to him and ask him for help in every part of it. That's what I would say. That's an actionable step to take now.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You have so much wisdom. And, I know you mentioned that you have a WhatsApp group and you have so many, you have so many different opportunities. So people should definitely check out the show notes to find out more. And if you want to mention, any other opportunities, if you have anything else that you want to share, or, you could share it in the show notes, totally up to you. But thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
This was truly incredible.
My pleasure. Is so special to be able to, again, if you're still listening, that means like how much dedication did you have to listen to the whole thing? So yasher koach to you for your desire to grow and your desire to be bigger and better and help your kids. What a beautiful chesed that you could do for another neshama, another person. And if there's anything that I can be supportive to you, if you'd want coaching, if you'd want to take any of the courses that I offer, if you have questions about it, you can email me, Miriam@skillsforconnection.com, and we can set up a time to talk. Hatzlacha Rabbah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Jews Next Door. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. I'd love to hear your takeaways. Reach out to us. Reach out to me at yair@genoff.org, hi@genoff.org. You can check us out on the website. You could leave a question there. We'd love to be in touch. Please be in touch. Check us out on Instagram at Parenting the Jews Next Door. Hit me up on Twitter at Yair Menshel. And we're on TikTok now too. We have some great content, a lot of really great insights into parenting, tips, parenting pointers, reaction videos, and quotes. We have a lot going on. We have a lot of articles. You want to check it out. Check it out at genoff.org. You won't be sorry you did. And I look forward to hearing from you. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe and share it with your family and friends. Looking forward to another great episode next week.